Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of The Art of Living Well. Of course, I am Liv Hill here today, and on today's episode, we are going to talk all about macro tracking mistakes. So we're going to get into that, but before I get started, I am going to say that on today's podcast, if you're watching this, I have just washed my hair and I've got like that new fresh hair vibe. Kind of digging it today. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely will put off washing my hair till like the last possible second. It's like we are in bun day 3 and 4 and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll break down and wash it. And then once I do, I'm like, why didn't I do this 3 days ago? So anyway, that's your encouragement. If you're like me and are putting off washing your hair, you're going to be happy once you get it done. So here we are with the fresh hair vibes today. All right, so let's jump into today's podcast. So today we are going to talk about just macro tracking mistakes and some of the mistakes that I see my clients make in the beginning, which is, always going to happen when we're learning something. We're going to just stub our toe a couple of times. But the great thing about being in coaching is that when they, we can see these things coming on and it's like, okay, pump the brakes, let's readjust and make sure that they stay on the right track. So if you are struggling with just macro tracking, making progress, I'm always open to have discussion with you to see if we can get you into coaching and help you to continue to get further down the road with where you want to go to meet your goals. If you are tracking macros on your own, here are some things that you may want to say, hey, these are some red flags. These are some macro tracking mistakes. And if I am stubbing my toe on some of these things, I may need to reevaluate and pivot where I'm at and see where I want to go. All right, so this episode will be a mini episode. You'll be here with me for about 10 minutes or so. So we're going to kind of blaze through these real quick. And as always, connect with me if you've got questions. Happy to answer these for you. All right, so number one, when you are tracking your macros, a mistake that you could be making is that you are playing macro Tetris. So what that means is that you are, it's at the end of the night and you're saying, oh my goodness, what has 5 fats, 15 protein and 82 carbs, and what am I doing? And you're in there eating Frankenfood, or you're Googling things, or trying to make things work, and that's what we like to call macro Tetris. And at the end of the night, who wants to eat half of a cheese stick, a lick of peanut butter, and 17 grapes just to hit your macro targets? So if you find that that is what you are doing and you're playing macro Tetris, this is not a life well lived when it comes to tracking your macros. You want to be able to say, hey, what's my main focuses for the day? Is there a way that I can manipulate my food composition earlier in the day so that I am at a place where I feel comfortable at the end of the day with my macro targets versus scrambling around at the end of the night trying to get in these random combinations? So that is number one. If you find yourself doing that, pause, pivot, and readjust in the way that you're planning your days and the way that you are planning your meals. On that kind of rolls into number 2. If you are consumed with tracking all macros and tracking them perfectly, or what I like to call like a unicorn day, and so you are just aiming for unicorn day after unicorn day, which means I want my calories, my fat, my protein, my carbs to all say 0 across the board in MyFitnessPal or whatever app that you're using to track your food. This is another red flag, being consumed with all of those macros, leveling out to 0 and trying to get your calories all in place. Okay, if you are doing this, let me just remind you that for most folks, and I'm saying most 90%, unless you've got like some really, strong composition type goals, or unless your coach has directed you differently, for most folks, just tracking calories and protein is going to be your sweet spot. And what I mean by that is your carbs and fats can kind of just fall where they want to fall. As long as you are hitting your calorie number and your protein number, that is going to get you in enough place to either build muscle, maintain, or stay in a fat loss phase. Because at the end of the day, calories are king and protein is queen. So what I mean by that is the most important thing is to stay within your calorie threshold. And secondly, making sure that you are hitting protein numbers. So if you find yourself that you are consumed with hitting all of the macros and all of the calories every single day, that is an added stress that you do not need. And again, that's for most folks. And they're called unicorn days for that reason. I think I might have like 2 unicorn days a year where I'll just like plug everything in and I'm like, look at that, I got a unicorn. I can't believe it. It's a rare sighting. So just pull back and remove some of that stress if you are finding that you are completely consumed with hitting every macro target perfectly every day. That will exhaust you. All right. Tip number 3 is that for red flags, if you're tracking macros and macro tracking mistakes, is if you are completely lost or you're at a wit's end if you do not have complete control over your food. So if you find, okay, when I'm at home and I am tracking my food, I can scan my barcode, I can weigh my food out or use my measuring cups, and I am in Blissville. But the dead second that we go to a game or I go to a party or we go out to eat and I don't have control over my food, I feel anxious, I feel stressed, oh my goodness, what to do? If you find yourself in this situation, this is a red flag. This is where we need to adjust the way that you feel and the way that you are managing things when you go out to eat or to a ball game and you are not in control of your food completely. So if you find that that is you, ask yourself, what makes me unsure? What makes me nervous? What makes me anxious? And you can kind of see how these all come together, because it could be that, well, if I don't have control over my food, then I'm a hot mess wreck. I don't have complete control. Well, are you trying to get those unicorn days? Well, are you trying to play macro Tetris, right? So you see how these things start to compound and layer together. And so you want to find this place to where, hey, you know what? My lifestyle involves going out to eat. Guess what? My kids have 3 games this week. I got to figure this out. And so the more that you're able to get into MyFitnessPal or whatever, I say MyFitnessPal because that's what my team uses. So I'm just going to continue to use that going forward. So if you are saying, hey, I'm going to go in here and when we get to the ball field, I'm going to have a hot dog and I'm going to have, some fruit, wing it. Put in your best effort. If every time you go out to eat or are in a situation where you're not in control of your food, you are not going to learn how to navigate macros long term and how to navigate your health long term. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you just plug something in, do the best you can, and then just keep moving forward. You'll be able to identify trends when you put something in versus just putting a blindfold on and saying, I'm just not going to track anything because I don't know. This is what keeps you in that yo-yo cycle. So I would encourage you, I'll give you a tip there. If you are lost, when you cannot control your food, lean into that and just do the best you can and learn from it. On that, the 4th tip or the 4th red flag is not learning as you go. So again, if you're not in control of your food, or when you are at home and you are in control, and let's say you're weighing out some chicken. All right, we're going to have chicken tonight. I'm putting it on the scale. I'm tracking that. Okay, I look at the scale. It's 4 ounces in MyFitnessPal. Bam, let's go eat. That's great, but if you're not learning what 4 ounces of chicken looks like, that's going to make you more anxious when you do go out to eat, because again, you're just like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. If you are not learning as you go when you're tracking macros, if you're not learning, okay, hey, I'm at home and I'm in control of my food. I have this. This is what this looks like as a calorie standpoint in MyFitnessPal. This is what this meal looks like on my plate. If you are not learning as you go, then that is a red flag. You need to learn this so that you can have intuitive eating down the road. If you do not spend the time to learn what you're eating and what that looks like on your plate and how you feel with your hunger and fullness cues, it is going to make it much more difficult down the road to continue to maintain your weight, because you're setting yourself up to depend completely on this scale, the food scale, to depend completely on scanning the back of packages instead of depending on yourself and what you're learning through the process. All right, the last thing, the last red flag for macro tracking mistakes is not eating food that you enjoy. All right, macros and macro tracking is a tool. It is a tool to freedom with food. What I mean by that is you have to enjoy the food that you're eating. If you are always eating, broccoli and chicken, but I'm hitting my macro targets, I'm making my macro targets, I'm in control, I'm unicorn day, I don't really enjoy what I'm eating, but I'm slamming these goals out. You're going to wear out on that, and then you're going to just go completely AWOL, and you're going to just lose it one day and just eat things that you have been, depriving yourself of. So macro tracking, if you are just not enjoying the food that you are eating most of the time, that is a red flag. You want to be able to get in there and have foods that you enjoy. Now, this doesn't mean that every food and every meal is going to be like an absolute celebration. Like, oh my goodness, every meal has to be the Pinterest best meal that I've ever ate in my life. No, I mean, that's not realistic, regardless of if you're macro tracking or not. We're not always going to have like the most amazing meal ever. If you ask me what I ate 2 days ago for dinner, I'm not going to be able to tell you because it wasn't important. It wasn't a memorable meal. But at the end of the day, if you ask me last week, did I have foods that I enjoyed? The answer is absolutely yes. So while you're macro tracking and while you're learning all of these things, hunger and fullness cues, portions, eating in your control, eating when you're out of your element and things that you can't control. When you're going through this process, you want to eat foods that you enjoy and make sure that you are making time for those and make sure that you are putting those in your weekly macro budget so that you can have things that you enjoy eating. All right? Okay, so this was a quick mini episode, 5 mistakes that folks make when they start macro tracking, or 5 red flags to look for to readjust if you are macro tracking. I hope this podcast was super helpful. Thanks so much for joining in. And this reminder to go wash your hair today if you need to wash your hair. No, I'm teasing. So you can catch me on Instagram, social media. I've got a website with a ton of recipes. www.livehillnutrition.net, and you can follow me on Instagram at live.hill.nutrition. Thanks so much for joining today, and I will catch up with y'all soon.